Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. In a press update, the United Nations is discussing some of the problems that they're actually having dealing with the Taliban, because the Taliban wants to reduce the role of women in society. They're trying to shrink the role of women in their society to the point that they actually become invisible. The Taliban, as a government in Afghanistan, they are very intent upon making it so that women are not seen or heard from. They have done things such as made it so that it is illegal for a woman to seek medical attention unless that doctor is another woman. And they've also put in rulings where women cannot go to school. Therefore, how do they obtain the ability to gain the medical knowledge needed to be able to treat other women in the community? They are reducing the importance of a group of people, and there could be some serious consequences to this. As a result of that, the NGOs and the humanitarian workers who are women in Afghanistan need to file an exemption so that they can do the work that needs to be done in the country. And it is becoming harder and harder to do so. Is one of the things that we're going to hear talked about in this press update from the United Nations. There are other issues, of course, around the Ukraine and Russia. And as you know, Canada and the United States, they have shipped and are shipping tanks, such as the Leopard 2 and the Abrams tank, to Ukraine in order to help them defend themselves against the Russian forces. And the Russian defense effort is also trying to get fighter jets approved to be shipped to the Ukraine for use to take command of the Ukrainian skies against Russian forces. So let's listen to that press update now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see so many faces. So, on Afghanistan, this morning, the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, briefed members on the humanitarian situation in the country and on his recent visit there as part of an interagency standing committee mission. Mr. Griffiths said that they told the de facto authorities that a 24th December edict barring women from working for national and international NGOs is doing no favors to the people of Afghanistan, for the people of Afghanistan. Women are an essential central component of the humanitarian operation in Afghanistan, he stressed, noting that if the ban is not revoked, more exceptions are needed to allow female aid workers to resume their activities. He noted that we have received exceptions in the health and education sectors, which have enabled activities to restart. Mr. Griffiths also underscored that humanitarian agencies will continue to work and be present in Afghanistan unless there is a blanket opposition to women working. The humanitarian community does not go on strike, but seeks ways to work in a principled manner. This year's Humanitarian Response Plan for Afghanistan is seeking $4.6 billion to help 28 million people in need, with some 6 million people close to famine. Turning to Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues on the ground tell us that the fierce fighting continues in the eastern Donetsk region, with civilians being killed and injured on both sides of the front line. Over the last 24 hours, the frontline city of Bakhmut reportedly came under intensive shelling again. Children were among those killed and injured. Thousands of people who remain in the city experience constant shelling, forcing them to spend hours in shelters, while access to basic services, including healthcare, is extremely limited. Civilians were also reportedly killed and injured in the areas of the Donetsk region under the temporary military control of the Russian Federation. And civilians have also been killed, and key civilian infrastructure, including dozens of homes, have been reportedly damaged in the east, north, and south of Ukraine over the past 24 hours. We continue to support the most affected communities near the front line. Yesterday, a humanitarian interagency convoy delivered food, water, medicine, emergency shelter materials, hygiene items, a generator, and other supplies for winter to the town of Toretsk, which is some 10 kilometers from the front line in the Donetsk region. The convoy also delivered trauma and emergency surgery kit supplies. Approximately 15,000 people of the 75,000 residents who lived there before the war started are still in that town and nearby communities. They depend on humanitarian assistance. The supplies were provided by the International Organization for Migration, UNICEF, the UN Refugee Agency, the World Food Programme, and the World Health Organization. And I have a trip announcement. This afternoon, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, will depart to Rome, Italy, at the invitation of the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences to participate in the Fraternal Economy of Integral and Sustainable Development workshop. This will be held on 2nd and 3rd of February in Vatican City. In addition to taking part in the workshop and upon the request of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the international cooperation, she will meet with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. And she will also meet with our Rome-based agencies to discuss the forthcoming food systems stocktake moment. She will be back here with us on Sunday. And in South Sudan, I want to flag that our mission there today raised serious concerns over the reported buildup of the Agwellic forces in Upper Nile State in the past few days. In a statement, the mission urged these forces, loyal to General Johnson Oloni, to refrain from any actions or movements that might pose threats to civilians and affect humanitarian operations in Upper Nile and Northern Jonglei. Our peacekeepers are increasing their presence in the area, and the mission is verifying reports of movement and mobilization. The mission underscored that it continues to engage with government, state officials, and other leaders to prevent any further escalation of tensions following fierce fighting that began last November. And we have an update from our peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic, known as MINUSCA. This week, the mission pursued its electoral awareness campaign in Obo and in Bria to encourage strong participation in the local elections. The mission also conducted a security assessment in the Wuhan prefecture ahead of the planned closure of the peacekeeping base in Kuki, which contribute to improving security in the area. In the last week, the mission carried out 1,927 patrols, including 8 jointly with the National Defense Forces. And the mission continued to coordinate with the Ministry of Interior and the Minister of Defense and the General Directorates of the Gendarmerie and the police to facilitate the countrywide recruitment drive for internal security forces. And a report from our colleagues at the UN Office on Drugs and Crime came out today on the trafficking of medical products in the Sahel. And it says that the high prevalence of infectious diseases, including malaria, coupled with challenges to access healthcare, is creating an environment in which the demand for medical products and services is not fully met through former channels. According to UNODC, this leaves room for trafficking, provides an incentive for the involvement of organized criminal groups, and fuels the ongoing threat to public safety in the region. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, as many as 267,000 deaths per year are linked to falsified and substandard anti-malarial medicines. The study also estimates that about 40% of the substandard and falsified medical products reported in the Sahel countries between 2013 and 2021 was discovered in unregulated pharmaceutical outlets. You can find the full study online. And I have 2 resident coordinators to announce today. Our Development Coordination Office tells us that Christine Umutoni of Rwanda and Aminata Maiga of Côte d'Ivoire are taking up their posts today in Liberia and Senegal, respectively. They were appointed by the Secretary General and confirmed by the host governments. And as you know, resident coordinators lead our UN teams on the ground to rescue the Sustainable Development Goals and support authorities to tackle development emergencies. And their full bios are available online. And today we mark the start of World Interfaith Harmony Week. This occasion aims to promote a culture of peace and nonviolence. It was first proposed by King Abdullah II of Jordan at the United Nations in 2010, and it was quickly adopted by the GA. It calls on governments, institutions, and civil society to observe it with various programs and initiatives that would promote the objectives of the week. And today, after I'm done here, Paulina will brief you. And then at 1 p.m., there will be a briefing by Ambassador Vanessa Fraser, the permanent representative of Malta, and president of the Security Council for the month of February. And she will discuss the program of work. And this is perhaps a record. Today, we thank 5 countries who have made their contributions to the budget. They are Barbados, Cyprus, Malaysia, the Republic of Korea, and Malta, so you can thank them in person. So we thank them for their payments, and the honor roll now totals 25. So I'll be happy to take your questions now. Yes, Edie.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to the podium. Today is the 2nd anniversary of the military coup in Myanmar, and the military government announced that it is extending the state of emergency that it imposed on February 1st, 2021 for another 6 months. Does the Secretary General have any comment on the anniversary and this extension of the state of emergency?
I mean, I think you all saw his statement already on this marking of the 2 years. I think he was very clear that he is concerned about all the violence that is going on there, not just the violence, but this is a multidimensional crisis. And, you know, I think he was very clear that we need to prioritize the safety of the people of Myanmar, and basically that these people need to be able to live free of violence and intimidation and feel free to express their views and opinions. And without that, it's going to be very difficult to have any progress in the country. So we are very much looking forward to seeing developments that lead into to this direction. Yes, Maggie.
Thanks, Florencia. Welcome to the podium. The Pakistani ambassador said during Mr. Griffiths' briefing just now about Afghanistan that there will be this conference on women and Islam on March 8th here at the UN. The DSG said last week it would be in the region. Is this the same conference? Has it been decided? Can you announce it?
I don't have details on that yet, but I do know that the DSG said it would be in the region and we would prefer it to be in the region. However, I have no confirmation of these details.
Okay, if you find out something, will you let us know? And then The New York Times had a story yesterday that the developer who owns the big plot of land next door to the UN is planning to put up a big development that includes a casino, maybe a Ferris wheel. I was wondering if the UN has been made aware of the plans, if it has any opposition to them, if it thinks it will be a security issue to have a casino there during UNGA or a benefit. What's your reaction?
I'm sure a lot of the delegates would like to unwind. Like, they do like to unwind after very long meetings. I'm sure maybe they would welcome that. I don't think, I am not aware of any formal sort of notification to us on that front. We have seen the reports, and we'll see how it shakes out. Yes.
Thank you. On Afghanistan, one thing is not clear about from Martin Griffiths' briefing to Security Council and what he said on Monday is there right now in Afghanistan male-only humanitarian activities by the UN or its humanitarian partners?
I mean, I think, I know that this question has been asked repeatedly, and it was asked of Martin and the DSG, and I think our message is like really very clear that we need women to deliver humanitarian assistance. Their role is essential in every sector. And that's why we've met with them to ask for these exemptions, right? It is a very complex issue, and you know, we can't like for sure say every single operation there are women and men equal. You know what I mean? It goes on a case-by-case basis. Things are not so clear-cut. So I think it's important to keep the conversations and the dialogue going with the de facto authorities to ensure that women are still allowed to do the humanitarian work. But the bottom line really, which is what we want to focus on, is that while the situation is very, very fluid, we are committed to keep delivering this humanitarian aid and to seize every opportunity to provide assistance to Afghans with both male and female staff.
So I feel like you didn't answer my question. Is there right now, you're not sure or you don't know if there's male-only humanitarian activities, and has there been exclusions of women from any of the UN programs as of today?
I mean, as I said, that each operation is different, and they're very complex operations. So that's what I said. It depends. I would refer you to Martin's office, who can give you more details on each of the operations. Well, that's.
Just one more thing about that. What is Secretary General himself's thoughts about this? Isn't he concerned that national government putting conditions on humanitarian programs and United Nations regarding certain group, in this case women, to be excluded will become a precedent, make countries like, for example, Turkey asking maybe in future to exclude Kurds from the humanitarian program, or the Chinese ask the Muslim Uyghurs to be excluded from a certain UN program. What is his thoughts about all this?
I mean, I think, the Deputy Secretary General, when she briefed, she was very clear, right, about how there are humanitarian principles, and one of the humanitarian principles is non-discrimination. So that would mean that everyone needs this assistance. Everyone in need should get this assistance, and that position has not changed. And of course, this is why we're still fighting and to get this aid delivered and talking to the de facto authorities. And obviously, this is not just in Afghanistan. This is everywhere, right? Like we need everyone to be able to access assistance, the most vulnerable, without preconditions. That's the nature of humanitarian assistance. Yep, here.
You say there are civilian casualties in Ukraine on both sides of the front line. As for the territory controlled by the legitimate authorities, everything is clear. But as for the territories occupied by Russia, where do you get your data on casualties? What your sources?
I mean, as you know, we have teams on the ground. They are obviously not everywhere. So we are not and we know that since the situation changes all the time on the ground, so do reports from casualties. But we have colleagues working there. We have the Human Rights Office reporting. So that's pretty much where we get it from. Next question. Edie, follow up.
Just a question on Haiti, follow-up to last week's Security Council briefing by Helen Lalim. Has the Secretary General received any new offers of troops or police for Haiti?
As of now, no. You may be referring to some media reports we've seen, but as of now, nothing official that has come to us. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you. The Israeli government continues its punitive measures against Palestinians. Since the beginning of this year, it has demolished 96 homes and commercial buildings, and there is a plan now to demolish 14 homes in Jerusalem in the next few days. And the collective punishment is illegal under international law. Do you have anything to say on this? Any call to Israel?
Can you repeat collective?
Punishment.
I mean, I think on the situation there, I think we have been very vocal about it. Mr. Wennesland has talked about this. The Secretary General has talked about this. Things in the region right now are not optimal, to put it one way. However, we continue to stand against all forms of collective punishment, and I think, it is crucial to do whatever we can. It is crucial for parties to do whatever they can in the region to lower tensions, to de-escalate. And that's what our focus and Mr. Vanensland's work has been focusing on. Someone has their mic on the chat, so could you please mute your mics? Any more questions? Is there any question? Stefano, yes.
Thank you. It's a follow-up on what we were talking before about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We had in a few days 2 press conferences here. But it looks like what they're saying is practically we have to wait to see what the Taliban are going to do after we told them what probably is going to happen if they don't allow women to work, especially in humanitarian. So practically disaster, possibly even 1 million people can die of starvation or cold and so on. So because here in this room, I think it was asked, but I don't think the answer was, Mr. Griffiths said, I've been working with the Taliban a long time and I know putting pressure on them is not wise because they react. So what is plan B? What if the Taliban, especially after seeing what they saw here as a response, what if the Taliban are too slow? I'm not going to say they just leave it down because the Deputy Secretary told us that their goal, that's our words, is to put women back on the 13th century. Now, I don't know how many people were dying in Afghanistan on the 13th century, freezing, or something, but probably many. The point is here, what is the message of the Secretary General or somebody from the UN to tell to the Taliban, if you let people starve or die for your trying to put women back on the 13th century, we are going to punish you. Are you ready to do that?
Right. So I think what the Deputy Secretary General said is we're trying to bring the Taliban from the 13th to the 21st century. And I think we have been very vocal about making not just Afghanistan, but pretty much the entire world aware that if half of your population doesn't have any rights, your society as a whole is not going to have any progress. So I think that has been very, very very clear. And the other thing is, I think, Martin deals with the humanitarian side of things. And obviously, he himself has said it, that is not a long-term solution, right? There needs to be a political track. And that is something that, we are working on. But I feel like we have not minced our words. I feel like we have been very clear. The Deputy Secretary General went there and said it very straightforwardly. So, this is where we are, and I wouldn't want to speculate about what will happen in the future.
Just have a quick follow-up. The problem here is if we were talking about a crisis that then can make, things unpleasant, but the way it was described by Mr. Griffith and before was described like that the situation